Good evening and welcome. You're watching NDTV Profit Special broadcast on the budget. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. And to discuss the budget in detail, we're now joined by Prachi Mishra, the former chief of the Systemic Issues Division of the IMF. Good evening, Ms. Mishra. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Nupur.
Right. Ms. Mishra, to begin with, the big thrust today from the government was on job creation. It was all about jobs, jobs and jobs. And the government essentially has also found, innovative ways to deal with it, with incentives announced for job seekers and employers as well. Now, the economic survey also, Ms. Mishra, has flagged employment generation as a key focus area. Do you think that this marks a shift from the previous years in terms of a greater and sharper focus on employment? And how far do you think it will go in solving this?
Thank you, Nupur. I think, first let's look at the big picture. I think, to me, the highlight from the budget is really the fact that it's a responsible budget. The fiscal deficit is projected at 4.9% of GDP in FY25, and this is a large 0.9 percentage point correction relative to FY24. And in fact, if you look at the last 4 years, it's a 1.8 percentage points. And this would, in fact, be the largest annual reduction which we've seen since 2013, excluding the post-COVID normalization. And this is despite the skew towards capital spending, which we've been seeing consistently. So to me, this is very important, and it's the fact that the finance minister noted very emphatically the plan to bring down the deficit further to 4.5%, and then she emphatically mentioned the goal to bring sovereign debt on a declining path as a percent of GDP. To me, this was the most striking part. And of course, there are several ways in which the budget tries to focus on the employment issue, carrying forward the theme of a theme from the survey as well. So I think the way I would say that the fact that it is prudent, you save resources, and you can use these resources for several several objectives, including raising employment or pushing certain sectors. But I also found the budget balanced in the sense of trying to include the youth, trying to include women. I think this was trying to include agriculture. I think half the eligible population in our country is employed in agriculture. So the fact that the budget focuses so much on agriculture, in fact, in the finance minister's speech, it featured right in the front itself, suggests the importance of employment for the budget. Let me stop here. I'm happy to take any questions.
Absolutely. As you pointed out, obviously, agriculture as well as the distress that we've been seeing in the rural sector is something that was likely to be addressed. Now, you were speaking earlier of fiscal consolidation. I just wanted to ask you, the capex has remained the same. Many would have expected with the fact that the RBI surplus came in, it was a huge number. Some part of it would have gone in capex, but that did not happen. Why is that? What's your view on it?
See, capital spending to GDP has been on an increasing trend. So if you look at, even FY compared to FY24 and FY25 budgeted, the capital spending to GDP is going up. Relative to the interim budget, it did not change, and that's attracting some attention. But if you look, consistently, it's been on an increasing trend. It's gone up by almost like 1 percentage point of GDP over the last 4 years or so. And if you look at the ratio of capital to current spending, Nupur, in the budget, that has increased from like 18%, 4 years ago, 21, 22 to 30%. So I think there's absolute continuity in the focus on capital spending in the budget. So I think there's no question about it.
Right. Now, one of the other themes that emerged was cooperative federalism. This, of course, includes the interest-free loans that were given to states for infrastructure building, allocations, of course, to Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, which is, balance of politics as well. But largely, is cooperative federalism seeming to you to be a big focus area going forward, given that this is, at the end of the day, a coalition government?
I think you're absolutely right, Nupur, because I think if you look at, as you pointed out, the fillip to states to encourage them, to nudge them to engage in capital spending. This budget announces about 1.5 lakh crore for capital spending as a 50-year interest-free loan. So it's effectively a grant and should enable states to utilize these resources, especially in critical areas such as health and education. These are all concurrent subjects under the 7th schedule of the Constitution. The issue is that states have not used these additional resources. It's quite ironical because the states are unable to spend on capital outlays, and this provides fiscal room to the center. So it's a bit counterintuitive. I think, as the economic survey correctly pointed out, I think the goal of Viksit Bharat can really be achieved through collective compact, and states have to be an integral part of this compact, because so many important topics like agriculture, health, education, most of these are state or concurrent subjects. And finally, coming on the issue of additional allocation for the states, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, flood-ridden states, I think this is really important. I think the budget is taking a step towards reducing interstate disparities by allocating resources towards particular states. Of Viksit Bihar, Bihar is a state with the lowest per capita income in India, and when India gained independence, an explicit government objective was to have a more egalitarian society coupled with balanced development of different regions. So active state intervention was really envisaged to reduce some of these disparities. So I think the budget, through allocations for poorer states or flood-ridden states, really moves the needle in the right direction to fulfill this vision. So I would say the budget tries to strike the right balance between being responsible, but at the same time being balanced and inclusive.
Right, and what's your view on the MSME sector? A large boost seems to have been given. The limit for Mudra loans has been increased. Also, a credit guarantee scheme has come in for MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. In fact, the manufacturing sector, there seems to be a significant thrust on that.
Yeah, I think, again, manufacturing sector, it relates to the overall goal of increasing employment. And I think the idea is to, give push to labor-intensive manufacturing to increase, to boost employment as well. And while we always talk about, bigger factories and, employment increase, in fact, the economic survey showed that, in fact, in the bigger factories, more than 100 workers, ASI, Annual Survey of Industry, suggests about 4%, increase in employment. I think a big part of the budget, and also a theme carried over from the economic survey, is to give a fillip to these MSMEs. And as you rightly pointed out, I think increases in demand and approval of credit guarantees to MSMEs under the CGT MSE scheme. I think all this is very very welcome development. Further leveraging the digital footprint of MSMEs in the economy, and have them, because they don't have proper credit assessment to help them cover those without formal accounting systems. I think and doubling of Mudra loan limits on the condition of successful repayment of previous loans is also welcome tone. Overall, I think the survey also pointed out a number of low-hanging fruit to deregulate the MSME sector. So I'm hoping, while these are not explicitly mentioned in the budget, these would be also on the cards for implementation. There's smaller things like there are restrictions on land, there are restrictions on parking spaces, there are restrictions on women to be involved in MSMEs. So all this, I think, I'm hoping that what was in the budget is very welcome, and more than that will be implemented over the course of the year. So MSMEs, boosting the MSME sector should be a key part of the long-term vision for Viksit Bharat.
Right, and Prachi, final question. There were obviously a lot of things that the budget did address, but according to you, what was the one thing that there should have been more focus on? There is a lot of talk about, of course, the implementation of the labor codes. Now, that did not come through in this budget. So what, according to you, is the one big miss?
See, I think, budget need not be, budget can signal reforms and signal the direction, but reforms can happen outside the budget all the time. So, of course, land and labor are both critical inputs to production. And while we did see, by the way, some reforms on related to land, for example, the unique identification of rural and urban land records, they are being introduced via this, the unique land parcel identification number, and in addition to better map digitization. On labor, I did not see anything on labor, but again, I would not, labor, some of the reforms have already happened. I think on labor, a lot of the issues making it, implementable throughout the country. I think that is more, and I hope that is going to happen, even outside the budget. I think one thing I would say that the budget, two very critical sectors in the en route to Viksit Bharat are health and education. And on education, I think the government has made education and skilling a huge priority, allocated 1.58 lakh crore rupees, provisions for education loans up to 10 lakhs for each student, basically students who are pursuing higher education in Indian institutions. All those are welcome moves. But overall, if you look at the allocation towards both health and education, it is almost flat relative to previous years, and also very low in international comparison. So again, health and education are areas where I would expect a lot to happen even outside the budget. We were if you think about higher education, I think India, just like India is the pharmacy of the world, India can also with a glorious past can be the university of the world. So I would say that despite some of the encouraging steps, more can definitely be done, and I hope a lot will be done outside the budget.
Absolutely. So as you're pointing out, health and education perhaps, are focus areas that the government will continue to work on. Thank you very much for joining us this evening and sharing your views.
Thank you, Nupur. My pleasure.
All right, you are watching NDTV Profit Special broadcast on the budget. We slip into a very short break. On the other side, we bring you more. Stay with us.